Today in the cycle of the season called Epiphany is known as Transfiguration Sunday. And I haven't followed the lectionary for some time, and so haven't actually looked at this passage for some time. But I thought, given that we gave this afternoon's event that featured this partnership of art and music, Transfiguration, I thought, let's have a go at it. So within the lectionary reading cycle that you understand is a human construction, right? It was meant to have a 3-year cycle so that ministers wouldn't just keep on going back to their favorite texts, right? That there was a set of biblical readings for 3 years, and then you rotated and you started all over again. Except some were always the same. So, for example, First Sunday of Epiphany was always called Baptism of Our Lord Sunday. So that was coming on the heels of Christmas. You would read one version of Jesus' baptism, because Epiphany within the lectionary cycle anyway was a way of introducing you to this baby that was born, and then every year to gain a little bit more clarity on who this man was. And then the final Sunday, before we entered the season of Lent, was also always the same reading, but a different version, Transfiguration Sunday. And I confess that earlier on in my, what do I call this? Practice of ministry, for some reason, I think I can only count that I've actually missed 4 Sundays in 30 years from sickness. And 2 of them were on this Sunday, because honestly, I loathe this passage. It was like for somebody who earlier on in my thinking about this tradition was very much somebody who wanted to think about this as a much earthier, like, touch and feel, and how do we make this work, and how do we incarnate it, and how do we relate to one another based on this tradition. Suddenly to have this mountaintop story with clouds and voices from heaven, I confess it was like a little bit too hocus pocus for me. Interesting, though, as I think about this, because the first Transfiguration Sunday that I was sick for was actually in 1986. So 32 years ago. 32 years later, here I am being enamored with this piece of music, or the words of My Blue Boat Home. And so I'm hardly about everything on earth anymore, am I? Or I'm thinking that as I think through this tradition, somehow the journey has taken me, and has taken, I suspect, all of us, basically, because of the universe we live in. It's like it just gets bigger every day. So how you think about your tradition can hardly, remain like this. So let me read to you this passage, and then try and do some further thinking about it. See what the invitation might be in 2018. Jesus took with him Peter and John and James and went up on the mountain to pray. And while he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly they saw 2 men, Moses and Elijah, talking to him. Now Peter and his companions were weighed down with sleep, but since they stayed awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men who stood with them. Just as they were leaving him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah," not understanding what he was saying. And while he was talking about this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were terrified as they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, Jesus was standing alone. So last week, NASA announced, and I quote, "The discovery of 7 worlds orbiting a small, cool planet some 40 light years away, all of them in the ballpark of our home planet in terms of heft or mass and size, diameter. 3 of the planets reside in the habitable zone around their star, named TRAPPIST-1, where calculations suggest that conditions might be right for liquid water to exist there on their surfaces. Though follow-up observations are needed to be sure, all 7 are early ambassadors of a new generation of planet-hunting targets." You should hear what the physicists are saying. They are just out of their minds with wonder. So 40 light years, that's how long it would take you to travel to the newly discovered TRAPPIST-1 system. And according to Google, traveling at a speed of 15 miles per second, it would take us just about 12,770 years to travel 1 light year. So that's close to the entire history of humans since the dawn of civilization to travel 1 light year. And to travel 40 light years, well, it would take us about 500,000 years. And that's twice as long as humans have existed on Earth. Talk about above and beyond. I'm speechless. So while we don't know for sure, it is Einstein who is credited with the following quote. "I think the most important question facing humanity is this: is the universe a friendly place?" It's an interesting question, isn't it? I suspect that it is the question that drove the evolution of every spiritual tradition, our own included. And after watching a bit of the BBC miniseries War and Peace this week, I can understand just a bit more why that question would constantly be in the back of the minds of our ancestors. So I did not know Tolstoy's story, but the backdrop are the Napoleonic Wars in Europe. It is 1805, 200 years ago. And Europe is a battleground again. And this master general from France has Russia and just about everybody else on the run. Young men are donning their uniforms. Young women are kissing them goodbye. And parents are praying for the best. And I am reminded again about how the human race functioned, or a good part of it functioned, for thousands of years. The stage of human power plays in constant tensions. Kingdoms coming and kingdoms going. And the human cost throughout the centuries is staggering. And so it is no wonder that over the centuries, there was a desire to make a connection with something other. That in the midst of the constant human power play would be faithful and worthy of our devotion. Please, you can only hear them crying out with desperation and yearning, please let there be something beyond us. Yet at the same time, even as we began to imagine something or someone beyond us, we've never been completely comfortable with mystery, which is what today's passage is inviting us to be. Comfortable with mystery. So let's go back and look at the history of our own tradition. The children of Israel are in the wilderness. The story says that they have been rescued from the monotony and the oppressiveness of Egypt, and they are being taken to a land of promise. And they are led by a cloud in the daytime and fire at night. And Moses is encouraging them to move beyond the challenges and to welcome the new story that is on the horizon. But on the occasion when he himself is up the mountain, encountering mystery, the people are on the ground and they're getting nervous again. And they are becoming afraid again. And they are telling Aaron, Moses' brother, this isn't working for us. We want a God that we can see and touch. That is the God we want. And so, overnight, they have their golden calf. And then we're going to fast forward a bit, and the people are in this new land. And there's a king in place, and, well, things have been stable for a few years now. And the king thinks, let's just make them a bit more stable and build a temple for this mystery God of ours. Because we're much more comfortable when we can contain mystery and touch and see and feel safe. Well, that season did not last very long, because with the arrival of another warring tribe, there went the temple. And so we fast forwarded yet again. And Jesus is on the mountain. And the story that we are told is that he must be really amazing, because on this mountaintop experiences, these two other pillars of our tradition showed up. Moses, who gave the law, a sign that we belong to God, and Elijah, another voice box for the mystery, and now Jesus, another voice to communicate mystery. And it's all, wow, mind-blowing that mystery would reveal itself to us. And just like that, Peter says, time to put it in a tent again. Time to contain it. Time to hold it here with us. Over and over. The idols and the temples we build in order to hold on to mystery, yet they never manage to convey mystery. And so the question remains, is the universe friendly? That's what we really want to know, isn't it? And so, I don't know. There was a universe we looked at last month. And then we looked at the universe of insects that almost live invisible in our midst. And then, I'm looking for it. Where is it? There it is. And all of these different universes, the snail, the invisible world of insects, the galaxy through which we are spinning, all of these things support our life. And so it would seem from 50,000 or 50,000 million feet that the only force that does not support our life is a human one. And that, perhaps, is the biggest mystery of all. And so as we conclude this season of Epiphany, it seems to me that the question that confronts us is this: are we on the side of life? Our decisions, our spending patterns, our eating practices, our gardening practices, our attention to the needs of the planet, are we on the side of life? Because it seems to me that what we have learned from the snail and the world of insects and the teachings of Jesus about perspective is that whatever the mystery is, it reveals an intention to support life. And the faithful, over the centuries, had a tendency to want to revere a God that they could understand, manage, put in a box, contain in a religious text, shroud with an institution. The mystery was very often reduced to the tribal deity, our God. This is our God. Peter, these are our guys. They're ours. Well, you can see how ludicrous that is, can't you? To try and contain that in any book or person or building or culture. Yet we've done all of that. So I was wondering what words I would choose to bring this season to a conclusion. I was a bit stymied for a while. And then I returned to some words from Richard's book, Embers. I think for today, they have something to say to us. A memory. I'm standing on a high shelf of ridge, miles out in the wilderness, far from any hiking trail. There's a lake far below me. The sky is so blue, I ache for it. I close my eyes and raise my head and face and arms to the sky. Everything is so keenly alive, I'm lost in the thrall of it. When I open my eyes, there's another man 30 feet away, lost in the same manner. We see each other. We smile. We laugh. We turn wordlessly and continue on our separate ways. The teaching? When we see each other through eyes of wonder, all barriers, all differences disappear. We are alive. We are joined. We are everything.